I've always had this fascination with masks. You know, I'm somewhat of an avid mask collector myself. I don't know why, there's just something mystical about masks. Almost like they really hold some kind of bullshit hocus pocus spirit inside of them, just waiting for you to put them on so they can transform you into their image. Although putting on my Wolverine mask won't actually turn me into Wolverine, it will just make me look like an idiot. A very special looking idiot. Transforming into what the mask represents is the exact action you do in the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask was a sequel to what some might call a sleeper hit. You know, I'm only talking about Ocarina of Time. Totally not considered one of the world's greatest video games ever made. Although, personally, I still kind of like Wind Waker over it, so. Ocarina of Time was your pretty typical, straightforward Zelda game. You know, you had familiar Zelda tropes like dungeons, key items to gather. Hyrule, of course, was in danger, linear progression, you know, your typical Zelda stuff. Where Majora's Mask was a tad bit different. Yes, it had your standard Zelda mechanics, but it took the familiar formula and added a shit ton of side quests and a unique mask-themed gimmick, turning Link into various creatures with their own style of play. Oh yeah, and you were also always on the fucking clock, so joy. Very joy. My personal history with Majora's Mask started back when I was a teenager, watching YouTubers talking about the deep and darkness of Majora's Mask, contrasting its tone to how lighthearted Zelda games usually are. And yeah, it's considered one of the most darkest Zelda games, and for good reasons. After watching my favorite YouTubers talk about this game, I actually ended up downloading it for the Wii's Virtual Console, a fun yet unfortunately retired service Nintendo used to offer. While it's not my favorite Zelda game, Wind Waker will still be that, I would say it's one of the best written Zelda games that really takes you through an emotional journey, allowing you to interact with really well fleshed out characters and giving you the opportunity to partake in some unique side quests that revolve around managing your time while collecting these masks. Just a note, for this review, all my gameplay I recorded will be coming from original hardware. And as for usual on this show, if I have the hardware, I'm pretty much going to be using it. I know emulators and the online service are a thing, but I just prefer giving you guys the original hardware experience. Anyway, let's get on with it as we take a look at this somewhat horror-themed Zelda game. Majora's Mask takes place right after the events of Ocarina of Time. You see, after Ocarina of Time, Link's fairy companion Navi goes missing, and Link sets out on a quest to find her. Link makes his way into a mysterious forest while riding his horse Epona. Epona is then spooked by two fairies, throwing Link off her back and knocking him out. This is where we are introduced to the Skull Kid's two fairy friends, Tatl and her brother Tail. Get it? Tatl, Tail. Yeah, fuck off, Nintendo. And while knocked out, our main antagonist, the Skull Kid, materializes wearing a very peculiar mask. I think this intro of him is actually done quite well, with the mask being the first thing that appears right before his body. This really hones in on the importance of the mask he's wearing right from the start. Anyway, the Skull Kid proceeds to rob Link, attaining his ocarina. Link then, of course, wakes up. I love how Link is all like, excuse me, sir, can I, help you? While trying to apprehend the Skull Kid, Link is literally dragged into what starts his unnerving adventure towards the world of Termina. He's then thrown off his horse, and this is where we finally take control of Link. One of my favorite things about Majora's Mask was how acrobatic Link had become. In Ocarina of Time, when Link was platforming, he usually just leapt casually off a platform, you know, nothing too impressive. In this game, it's like complete opposite. He's doing straight up front flip, side flip. Like, bro, who do you think you are? Dick Grayson? Matt Murdock? Jesus. I like this because it kind of shows how skillful he became between the time he spent during his adventure in Ocarina of Time and now. Plus, it gives off this kind of Peter Pan look to him, which, if I'm not mistaken, Link was actually based off Peter Pan, or I think his design was, so it kind of comes, full circle here. Unfortunately, all his cool moves leads him into a confrontation with the Skull Kid. Dude, look how freaking menacing this guy looks, with the spotlight and the torches in the back. His body is all floating. His face is covered in shadows, but his eyes are like still glowing. Yeah, this is pretty artistic. I mean, even Link, with the way the lighting is hitting his face and the colors, really add to the intense drama. I'm actually kind of digging the cinematics of the scene. The Skull Kid then puts a curse on Link, transforming him into a Deku Scrub. The Skull Kid is kind of like a Loki, or maybe even a Trickster demon. With the help of the Majora's Mask he's wearing, the Skull Kid has some pretty world-bending powers to him. After turning Link into a Deku Scrub, he then floats away, and when Link tries to go after him, the fairy Tatl tries to stop him. But unfortunately, she ends up getting separated from her brother and the Skull Kid. Unfortunately for her, that means she has to join forces with Link. Tatl is an interesting fairy. She's basically this game's Navi. She'll act as the Z target for Link and will give Link some hints and clues on what to do next, or any information about the area they are in. Honestly though, she is a little less annoying than Navi. Navi had this whole, hey, listen, so it was kind of hard to ignore her. Tatl, on the other hand, just sounds like a bell's chime, so when she does want your attention, she'll just, chime. No voice or anything. I actually found myself forgetting she existed for some things. Her chimes aren't that loud, so I was pretty much able to ignore her. She makes her presence mostly known in cutscenes. Her brother Tail, on the other hand, isn't really seen a whole lot in Link's adventure, as he pretty much spends the whole game by the Skull Kid's side. Tatl's entire quest and motive is really to reunite with her brother and stop the Skull Kid from causing too much damage. Well, more damage than he's already done. You kind of get a little bit of character development from Tatl, and you get to see her opinions on the Skull Kid and what's really going on with this world. Throughout this journey, you'll see cutscenes on how Tatl and Tail met the Skull Kid, finding him alone during a rainstorm. The Skull Kid was lonely, and it seems like so were they. And in a weird way, they all completed each other. They would play together and even pull pranks on people. They were pretty much family. All that changed though. According to Tatl, things got kind of out of hand when the Skull Kid decided to take his antics up a notch, and that's when he got his hands on the mask he wears. So with Tatl by Link's side, they go after the Skull Kid, and they end up entering a windy hallway that transports them into an unusual room. A contrast to the forest setting they thought they were in. This room houses gears within a stone structure, and there's a freaking body of water running through it. Yeah, Toto, something tells me we're not in Kansas anymore. Before leaving, the famous "you've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" is echoed, and turning around, you'll see it's coming from none other than the Happy Mask Salesman. The Happy Mask Salesman was seen in Ocarina of Time, but wasn't really a fully fleshed out character then. In this game, it's implied that this man has a bit of a sinister energy to him. His mannerism is very cartoony, yet his chuckles sound malicious. Very devious. He's an interesting character. While he is a little fleshed out in this game, unfortunately though, spoilers, he's never really expanded upon, which is a shame because I would have loved a little bit more backstory to him. He provokes Link to help him get the mask back that the Skull Kid stole from him. In exchange, he promises to turn Link back to normal. So yeah, this is the man that the Skull Kid stole the mask from. After hearing the mask salesman's plea, the mask salesman says he is set to leave in 3 days. So Link has 3 days to get the mask back. Not really giving Link much of a choice, he agrees, and he sets out on his adventure through the strange world of Termina. The world of Termina is an unusual world. It's basically a multiverse of Hyrule, even having the same characters from Ocarina of Time, but with different names. some new characters like Cafe and his parents, but this world features mostly mirrored characters. Now, it's unknown if Termina was created by the Skull Kid or if it's like a Link's Awakening thing where everything is a dream world. I will say though, given the vast history and culture of Termina, it's probably just a multiverse rather than something the Skull Kid created. Majora's Mask feels somewhat more carefully crafted, with areas having more meaningful things to do in them. As much as I liked Ocarina of Time, I always felt like the world was a bit too big for the game, with just empty spaces here and there. Given it's a bit more carefully crafted, I kind of feel like I like Termina just a little bit over Hyrule, with some exceptions, because, you know, Hyrule has some pretty cool locations like Hyla and Lon Lon Ranch. Now, Link will eventually turn back to a normal guy. After leaving the clock tower, you kinda just have to run through the 3-day cycle until you face off with the Skull Kid on top of the clock tower at the final day. And in doing so, you obtain the Ocarina of Time, you play the Song of Time, and you go back to day 1. And then the masked salesman, after violently shaking you, will teach you the Song of Healing, which is actually one of my favorite Zelda songs and a pretty useful song in this game. Okay, right away, I want to say this. I miss musical items in Zelda games. I can't believe we don't have this type of gameplay anymore. The gameplay of having to play songs in order to either affect time, the wind, or just even open a door leading into a new area to explore like a dungeon. This type of gameplay was very satisfying to me. It's basically solving a music puzzle or using music to manipulate the world you're playing in. It's very mystical. And it kinda sucks that newer Zelda games have opted out of having music be an importance to the Zelda world. Not just in terms of the soundtrack, as Zelda music is still pretty good, but gameplay elements could vastly improve with a musical instrument Link plays. Plus, I felt the musical element was what separated Zelda from most action RPGs or action-adventure open-world games. In a weird way, I feel like Zelda has been missing its identity lately. Yeah, so like I said, Link has 3 days to get the mask back, not just because of the masked salesman departing, but there's also rumors that the moon, you know, this thing that's staring at you throughout the entire game, is set to crash in 3 days. And it's all due to the fact that the Skull Kid is being a fucking dick in this game. Or should I say it's Majora, his mask, that's being the dick. I don't know. Whoever's in control is being the dick, is what I'm saying. Given you have only 3 days, you're going to be constantly using the Ocarina of Time to go back in time to reset the clock. Although you can only go back to day 1. But what's cool is Link can actually slow down time and even skip forward into time from day to night. I love how in order to do this, you have to play the Song of Time backwards in order to slow it down, or play each note from the first part of the song twice in order to speed time forward. Besides manipulating time, Link will learn many songs throughout his journey. Songs that will help him enter main dungeons, songs that can heal people, songs that can help him fast travel, and so on. I like how these songs aren't always used for like the most obvious things. Like you have something like the Sonata of Awakening, which does open the Woodfall Temple. But this song can also awake this giant stall child, which is part of a side quest. I like that these songs are being used outside of their usual location. It kind of gives them more usage. Plus, like I said, it's kind of like a puzzle, you know, you have to figure out which song you have to play in order to proceed or unlock something. Time isn't a major importance in this game. Even if you can reset time, you still have to make use of those 3 days you're given. This game is essentially just Groundhog's Day, the game. If you haven't seen it, I recommend a movie called Groundhog's Day, starring Bill Murray and directed by the great, but unfortunately late, Harold Ramis. Both men played in a little movie from the 80s you probably never heard of. That's right, I'm talking about Stripes. The movie Groundhog's Day was about a weatherman that takes a trip with his production crew to a small town to cover the Groundhog's Day ceremony. Unfortunately though, Bill Murray's character gets stuck in a time loop and has to repeat the same day over and over again. This game is pretty similar in that aspect, except of course you have 3 days instead of repeating just 1. And the time loop itself is the selling point for Majora's Mask. At least it was for me. I do love stories centered around time travel, as Back to the Future 3 is my all-time favorite movie. I mean, I love all the Back to the Future movies, but Back to the Future 3, for some odd reason, just clicked with me more. I think it's because the third movie really sparked my imagination when it comes to stuff like time travel. It's the movie that really made me fall in love with time travel. And I really like how Majora's Mask allows me to somewhat live out that time traveling fantasy a little bit more than something like Dragon Quest VII or Ocarina of Time did. I think it's really just because I can actually control time rather than just enter a time portal. In a weird way, I'm the driver of the DeLorean, so to speak. Just like the movie Groundhog's Day, everything in those 3 days has a schedule, and you have to learn that schedule. You'll see that on day 2, it starts to rain at a certain time. You'll see at the end of day 1, this old lady gets robbed near midnight. This Goron over here checks in on day 1 during late afternoon. The mailman has a mental breakdown on the final day. Anju the innkeeper can be seen walking around town with an umbrella around day 2 at a certain time. This guy is always at the bar because he's a fucking milkaholic. Although, given the milk they serve, I really wouldn't blame him. What is cool about the NPC's schedules is that you can actually kinda disrupt them, or at least alter them, if it's relevant to a side quest or some kind of activity in the game. For example, you can actually check in at the inn at a certain time and steal someone else's reservation, and that someone, a Goron with the same name as you, is forced to sleep outside, which is kind of hilarious if you ask me, because get fucked, you rock eater. If you save this old lady from being robbed, not only will she give you a blast mask which blows you up, but you can also buy a bomb bag from the shop her son works at. If you don't save her, then you'll have to buy the bag at the curiosity shop, as the thief will pawn it there. It's really cool to see that your actions do have some kind of consequences with the people around town, and it allows you to sort of experiment with what to do with certain characters. Unfortunately though, some of your actions can deactivate a side quest. Like if you stop this thief, you can't do Anju the innkeeper's side quest, as a certain cutscene between the thief and the curiosity shop owner is pretty important to that quest. Also, during Anju's quest, she will give you a letter that you're supposed to deliver to her fiancé, Cafe. But you don't have to actually deliver that letter to him. Instead, you can give it to this man looking for toilet paper. Although, if you give the letter to this man, you can't unfortunately continue Anju's quest, as you just wasted her letter. But hey, look, you get a thumbs up and a heart piece. Okay. It's cool though that your actions all have options to them. Like you can explore different routes to take for a quest and be rewarded for your exploration. While the controlling of time is fascinating to me, and I do love the time loop, the whole process of having to do activities in 3 days and going back to day 1 can be a bit tedious. My experience with Majora's Mask is the same exact experience Bill Murray's character from Groundhog's Day had. At first, everything was like a bit frantic and discombobulating. Like I didn't really know what to do or where to proceed next. But then I started to, learn some schedules, tackling some side quests, and really seeing how this world works, and it became fun. But you see, there comes a point where everything just starts to feel the same. You do so much in this game that you start to get bored, and the constant time loop really just starts to wear you down. Plus, any mistake I make while on a quest would result in me having to restart my progress. Yeah, that can be a bit much and kind of frustrating. Also, with the option to take different routes and essentially create different timelines does sound appealing, given you're rewarded differently depending on your choice you make. It can drag when you're required to seek out all the options and its reward, because some quests can be long and even tedious to do. And sometimes the choices you want to make can arise during the middle or even towards the end of that quest. For example, back to Anju the innkeeper. At one point, you'll meet her fiancé Cafe, and then you will be given a task to deliver a letter to his mom. Now, you're given the option to give it to her directly, or you can hand it to the mailman so he delivers the letter to her. By doing this, this will complete the mailman's quest line, but the other option will complete Kafei's mom's quest line. Given that you can't do both in one run, you would have to do one of the options, then restart that quest to do the other route. And Anju's quest, unfortunately, is the longest quest in the game, so to experience both options takes a lot of patience. Of course, you don't have to experience both routes. Oh, I just realized I'm kind of deep in this review and I haven't even talked about the fucking masks, which is just as important as the time loop. So yeah, masks play a pivotal role in this game. The game gives you your usual equipment. You know, Link has a sword, he has a shield, he has items like arrows and the Lens of Truth, but then there are the masks. Given Link was turned into a Deku Scrub and was taught the Song of Healing, turning back to normal, the Deku Scrub's form turns into a mask. Now, inside the mask harbors a spirit of a deceased Deku, which I think was confirmed to be this butler's son, or at least it was obvious. Anyway, along Link's quest, Link will get two other masks, the Goron mask and the Zora mask. These masks all harbor spirits inside of them and will transform Link into the race of that mask. I would say out of all three of these masks, the Zora mask is my favorite. The Zora mask actually made me like the Zora people because of how cool their abilities are. When Link dons his mask, he kind of has like this martial arts, almost Bruce Lee-like fighting style to him. He can also use his fins like boomerangs. He also can swim like a dolphin, even jump out of the water like one. Although, trying to angle some of these jumps, yeah. I actually like games that have at least decent controlling swimming mechanics. Swimming is always such a unique aspect in a game, but it can be kind of tricky to control or get right. Here in Majora's Mask, swimming as a Zora is just fun and, dare I say, peaceful at times. Although, sometimes the water effects when swimming underwater is a bit too jiggly, which luckily didn't make me motion sick or anything, but I'm not a fan of jiggly visuals like this. I do kind of wish there was a little bit more places to swim, as the only big body of water you can swim around is the Great Bay, and you can't really swim past certain parts. Dude, I wish this swimming and diving exploration was in like Tears of the Kingdom. Deep sea diving as a Zora in a world that big would have been freaking fun. The Zora also has a pretty kick-ass guitar. Dude, it's like made out of like freaking fish bones and shit. That's fucking badass. On the flip side, I fucking hate the Goron gameplay. It's mostly because of the stupid rolling powers, and his combat really just sucks ass. His attacks, while pretty powerful, is short range and slow. Then he does like this stupid butt bounce, like what the fuck is this about? I don't like his fighting style. And then there's the rolling. God, I hate the rolling. Okay, it is kind of fun to roll around the open fields, I will say that, but sometimes the game requires you to, get some speed and jump ramps. The issue is getting traction, because if you don't get a good enough traction, he won't propel over the ramps. And then there's also the issue with controlling his roll when he does jump. It is fucking dumb. The Snow Temple in this game is my least favorite temple because that is his temple. And that temple requires you to constantly jump ramps, and then you're required to roll over these snowy slopes, which if you bounce off the wall, he falls. Very, very fun. I like this. I like this type of gameplay. Yeah. I think it's the fact that he bounces off everything that just really pisses me off. The Goron controls are honestly just rough. And you know what? I kind of hate Gorons. Yeah, I said Gorons, as in all of them. I kind of hate their species. And it's because I've been them. I've rolled as them. I've fought as them, and you know what? Fuck these rock eaters. Yeah, I hate them.
And not just the men, but the women And the children, too. I hate them!
For the Deku Scrub, I kind of found him useless. I don't hate him, like I hate the Gorons. I just think his existence is pointless, both in a philosophical way and a literal way. Well, he's useful in the beginning, of course, but once you kind of make your way past his dungeon, he becomes quite irrelevant to use. Plus, his gliding mechanics just kind of suck. It's too wobbly and you can't really glide for too long, it seems. Sometimes he can get a wind boost, but that can easily fail if he's not positioned at a certain point near the wind boost. Plus, diving deep into the launch areas can be quite frustrating because if you launch him too early, he just kind of hops out instead of, propelling up like he should. And, platforming as him is just annoying, especially when he gets hit. And again, he's just kind of useless after a certain point. I mean, you are forced to use his abilities during his dungeon, of course, as he is the first mask and his story revolves around the first dungeon. But yeah, after that, he's just pointless. He also spits, which, ew. I mean, okay, I like his trumpets. They're way better than the Goron's stupid drums. Okay, who the fuck do you think you are, huh? Donkey Kong? Fuck off. But yeah, out of all these three, Zora Mask is the best mask. Now, the thing about Majora's Mask is the game's plot is kinda short, as it only has 4 main dungeons and a final boss battle with Majora. However, that doesn't mean this game is void of things to do. There are a buttload of side quests and side content found in this game, and it's to the point where the game should have really just been called Link's Side Activities in Termina, because all he does in this game is side quests. The important side quests, which yes, there are important side quests, are all about gathering masks. You see, there are 24 masks in total that you can collect. 3 of those masks are the transformation mask, so the other 21 masks are considered optional. Although out of those 21 masks, some of the masks are important to the story. Like the giant mask is a mask you get in the Stone Tower Temple that you use to defeat the boss in that temple. And then there's like the Garo's mask, which is another mask that's kind of required to get in order to further progress in the story. So there are masks in this game that are required in order to progress, but the other masks are optional. Even though these masks are optional, some of them still have abilities. Like the bunny hood makes Link run faster and helps him with the Postman's minigame. The pig mask can help you find mushrooms that you'll give to the potion maker to make a special potion. The cow mask will allow you to buy some special milk at the bar, which is usually meant for adults, because it's got like alcohol or something in it. I don't know, it makes people drunk. Now, there is a purpose to gathering all the masks. It's not just a way to increase your mask collection. Partaking on this journey, if you do collect all the masks, you'll be able to unlock the Fierce Deity mask when you get to the moon level. I love the Fierce Deity mask a little bit more than the Zora mask. It's basically how you play Adult Link in this game, but it's like Super Saiyan 2 Adult Link. You know, like when Gohan turned Super Saiyan in order to defeat Cell. That's basically what this Fierce Deity mask is. Unfortunately, you can only use this mask to fight Majora, which was kind of disappointing. Like the Giant's mask, it's pretty useless outside of a specific fight, which sucks because I would have really loved just to, fuck some bad guys up with as the Fierce Deity Link. Now, if you want to collect all the masks, you have to partake in some side quests. Given everyone around Termina has a schedule, it means that they have specific wants and needs. And well, given you're the hero of everyone's personal issue, it's up to you to solve them. First though, you have to be a bomber, which is a gang full of children that help people, I guess. Okay. Once you become a bomber, you'll get the official bomber notebook, which is basically your quest log. Some people you interact with will be added to your notebook, meaning you have to learn their schedule and see how you can help them during specific times. Now, not all mask quests, unfortunately, will be recorded in this book, which is kinda dumb because this game trains you to use the notebook. Yet there are some quests out of the book? Yeah, that's not really fair on my memory, Nintendo. The notebook is helpful as it not only tells you what times to be aware of, but it also indicates whether or not you're on the right track when there are multiple things to do within a quest. You'll get this exclamation mark or a ribbon to indicate that you're doing something right. You also get a little sticker at the end when you complete a task, which, cute, I guess. I will say, though, I do wish the Bomber Notebook was a bit more easier to understand, as just looking at these blue blocks is a bit hard to decipher. Like, I know there's something of importance regarding this specific character at this time, but what do I do? And sometimes talking to a character during these specific blocks doesn't do anything. Like, I can't ask questions about their quest or even ask what I need to do in order to help them. Sometimes I just get a quest even if a person doesn't seem like they need help. So what do I do? Also, there's no notes that get recorded in my journal, so there's no next step or even a hint on what to do next. Sometimes you get a reward during a quest, but that doesn't mean you completed the quest. It just means you got a reward. So what now? The challenge is really trying to figure out how to trigger an event with these characters. This can be a bit frustrating, and I feel like I waste a lot of playtime and energy just trying to figure out what a person needs than actually experiencing the fun story to the quest. And that's the thing about these quests. They're actually really well written, and some are worth experiencing. In comparison to other Zelda games, Majora's Mask really takes the cake when it comes to telling a much more mature and even emotionally moving story. Or should I say, stories, as there's a lot of stories in this game. There are characters in this game that have issues, baggage, hopes, fears. Some of them are really well fleshed out. Anju the Innkeeper is a woman that I've been referencing throughout this entire video. Her story is pretty touching. You see, her fiance has disappeared, and she has no idea what happened to him. She hopes and prays that one day he will return and give an explanation. She's out looking for him, and she just doesn't know what happened to him and really what to do. She's kind of a sad soul, and little does she know, her fiance Cafe was turned into a child, kind of like Goku from Dragon Ball GT. And he's on a quest to get his body back to normal, and he's also on a quest to get his marriage mask back from the local asshole thief that stole it from him. This, unfortunately, was the longest side quest in the game, as there are like multiple parts to the story, and it's told throughout all 3 of the days, with the final day at the last few hours being dedicated to these two reuniting and exchanging their masks that symbolizes their marriage to each other. And their quest ends with them being willing to be together as the world comes to an end, dying in each other's arms. Which, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's kind of deep and somewhat chilling. A little creepy though, because well, he's still a kid. And I would say my favorite side character was Crimea. She's the older sister of Romani and the owner of Romani's ranch. Who, yes, they're both basically the multiverse counterpart of Malin from Ocarina of Time, both adult and child. When you first meet Crimea, you'll get her little quest marker, but when you speak to her again, she talks about Romani Ranch a bit and the magical milk they produce. This might be the male brain in me, but I did find something quite appealing and real cute when she performs this little dance sales pitch to you, explaining the mystical properties of the milk they produce, which again is basically milk with alcohol. She kind of chuckles, then asks, "How is my sales pitch?" Her dialogue made me smile a lot more than it should, but there's kind of a darkness to her. Not in a bad way, but she does come off a bit fake. Fake as if she's masking something personal. While doing her quest, you'll learn that the ranch was originally owned by her father, and given he has passed away, you realize that this is a story about a young woman who basically became a mother overnight and was thrown the responsibility of keeping her father's ranch afloat, whether she really wanted to or not. And you kind of can tell she's someone who's just trying, you know? She's trying to raise her sister properly, and she's trying to keep the ranch together. She seems pretty isolated on the ranch, with Anju being her only real friend in town. She's basically lonely. Not to mention, there's always something going on at the ranch, you know, from alien invasions to bandits attacking her carts on her nightly runs. She also has some real concerns about the moon falling, and she also questions whether it will actually fall. She's a really well-written character, and I found myself really drawn to her, not just because she's a, you know, cute, busty redhead, but her sadness and story made me feel invested in her plight. The game made me care for her in a weird way. In fact, it ended up just adding to the incentive to save these people. What Majora's Mask does a fantastic job doing is making you actually care about these people. You don't just meet NPCs, you partake in stories centered around who they are and what they lost because of the Skull Kid's curse. You see what they're afraid of and even see what some of them are not afraid of. Like, some of them aren't afraid of this supposed moon crashing. In fact, some people in this town are just divided by that event in general. You get to see a sense of panic as the government of the city doesn't know what to do. With the Skull Kid running around, they don't know whether they should evacuate the town. They don't know if the moon's really gonna crash. They don't know if they should cancel the festival that they're holding. It's kind of chaotic and it's interesting. The Skull Kid's action has real consequences to the people around this world, and unfortunately a lot of games don't show stuff like that. Sure, in Oblivion you have people afraid of the Oblivion gates, but their dialogue is usually repeated amongst everyone in the game, making them all really feel kinda hollow in a way. Each character here is a character handcrafted with their own personality and opinion. But at the end of the day, of course, these are just video game characters. They're not real. But you see, that's kind of the magic of Majora. They feel real in a weird way. And I generally feel bad when a bad outcome happens to these characters. Like not saving Romani from the aliens. Fucking A, the little girl gets abducted and I didn't like that. You know, that shit made me panic. Yeah, I hated that feeling. Like, I mean, it feels like it was my fault. Because, you know, I didn't save her. Yeah, fuck you, game. Or the Zora singer. Her babies were stolen by pirates, and after she gave birth to them, she lost her voice. And what made it worse was the man she loved, I think, died trying to get her babies back. Another reason why I really liked the Zora mask was I just loved the story that was attached to it. I felt for this man. If I were in his shoes, I would have done the same thing. What makes it even sadder is that after I saved her babies, I actually ran out of time while trying to finish the water temple. So I had to basically restart back to day one, right? And in doing so, I ended up undoing saving her babies. And I had to beat the temple knowing I didn't save her kids. So yeah, thanks game for rubbing salt into my fucking wounds, you dicks. Fuck you, Nintendo. Like, seriously, I felt like I just hurt someone, and that feeling is kind of silly given it's a friggin' video game. But damn, the writing just makes you feel for these characters. Although, don't get me started on that quest where you have to save the little girl's father. Besides the amazing side quests, you actually do have to save the world, so you have to do what every Zelda game tasks you to do. And the thing you have to do is to go into a dungeon and collect a thingy. The thingies you collect in Majora's Mask are more masks. Each boss has a spirit trapped inside their mask, and it's really up to you to free them. And these spirits are the 4 guardian giants that protect Termina. Now, these giants were old friends of the Skull Kid, but after the Guardians took their role as guardians of the people of Termina, the Skull Kid felt abandoned by them. So he decides to harass the people of Termina in a sort of a Lucifer kind of way. A little less devilish though, and in more of a Ashton Kutcher punking people kind of way. Although he tormented them enough to the point where they had to call upon the Guardians to scold the Skull Kid. This only angered him and basically left him alone. This was all before he met Tatl and Tail, and before he got his hands on the Majora's Mask. So given Link's task, at the end of each dungeon, he'll learn a piece of the Oath of Order, which is a song that will call upon the 4 Guardians in order to help the people in a time of need. I do kinda have mixed feelings about the temples you explore. They're not bad, they just could have been better. Tedious is the word to describe them, but tedious can also explain all of Majora's Mask. I think the constant clock ticking did make me a bit nervous of not finishing them on time, and some of them could have provided maybe more interesting puzzles and objectives. They're your typical Zelda structured dungeon. You run around, collect keys to open doors, you fight enemies and mini-bosses, which usually rewards you with the dungeon's main gimmick. I honestly do miss this formula though. I know I'm making it sound boring, but I do miss this. Like, I miss having dungeons that have gimmick and specific items needed for said dungeon. I also miss getting equipment in Zelda games that don't break, you know? There's also, of course, different puzzles you have to solve. Most of them are your simple shoot, switch, or put object over switch, with some occasional good ones, like having to trick shot an arrow through a torch in order to hit a block of ice. That was pretty cool. There's also a pretty cool puzzle where you had to shoot ice and fire arrows at these waterfalls in order to arrange the platforms in a way that allows you to sort of hop to the top, which was pretty cool. I like element-themed puzzles, so I will say right away, I do not like the Snowhead Temple, obviously. I mean, there are some cool things I liked about it. Like, I like how at a certain point you have to sort of like punch these stones to sort of level the main pillar that led to the main boss. That was pretty cool. I'm all about Zelda dungeons that allow you to sort of manipulate your environment, so I also like snow themes, you know, levels or dungeons. I'm just a sucker for this type of aesthetic. But the usage of the Goron's abilities, no, didn't like that. The final boss of this temple was okay, I guess. It's kind of fun at first, right? It was probably the only time I was actually into using the Goron's rolling powers, but it just dragged like forever. Actually, all the bosses in this game kind of dragged on, but the constant rolling in a circle in order to hit the fucking piñata and dodging his obstacles, yeah, that got old pretty fast. Usual Zelda games, you kind of just hit the boss like 3 times, or you have to hit them in like a gimmicky spot, but unfortunately not in this game. Just a whole lot of hit, run, hit, run, hit, run, hit, run, hit, run, yada, yada, yada. The first temple, the Woodfall Temple, was okay. I'm just not a fan of the swamp jungle theme, unless I'm playing like Donkey Kong or something. But I did like how some of the puzzles required you to sort of trick shot an arrow through one of the torches to light another torch. That was like pretty cool. You know, classic Zelda puzzles here and there, you know. The boss was... Again, he took forever. Like forever. To be fair, I kind of wondered if maybe I'm just not fighting him right. I fought him using Link's normal form, and I kind of wonder if maybe I was supposed to use the Deku Mask for this one. He was just kind of overwhelming to deal with, because not only is he huge and attacking with his sword, he also has reinforcements and can shoot a swarm of moths at you. Not only that, but he like fucking jumps around if you try flying too close to him. Then he'll just like spawn fire. It's like, dude, can you just like give me some fucking time to think? Also, how the fuck do you kill these moths? Like, really? Sword swings don't work? Yeah, fuck this guy. I do like his design though. He kind of reminds me of like a South American Aztecian warrior. The third temple, the Great Bay Temple, is probably my favorite temple. Maybe. I say that with hesitation because it is the most tedious one, but I kind of like what they were doing in this one. I don't like it visually, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, I like the water theme. And I like how you have to ride a turtle to get there. But the pipes and almost factory-like setting is a bit unappealing to me. But I like how you had to manipulate the water current of this room by pushing these switches in another room to change the rotation of this propeller. Again, I like manipulating my environments. And I love swimming with the Zora mask in this dungeon. And while I do like how you're pumping water through pipes in order to manipulate currents and waterfalls in other rooms, I didn't like the constant backtracking between rooms, and I didn't like how it took all 3 of my days just to get through it. You know, it's funny, I remember having such a hard time with the boss the first time I played Majora's Mask, to the point where when I was playing this playthrough, I started to dread the boss. But he's kind of stupid easy. Like, all you do is just stun him with your boomer fins, then you drop down in the water and activate your magic shield force field in order to hurt him.
You have to dominate the swordfish. Only then can you saute it.
I think the challenge is making sure you come well equipped with fairies or potions, as he does hit you a lot if you're not careful. Or should I say, he eats you. You know what bothers me about him eating you, besides the fact that he's eating you? So Zora Link can do this force field shield attack that hurts his enemies, right? Yet, I can't activate that attack while I'm being chewed up? Yeah, that's kind of bullshit. I mean, you'd think something like this would be perfect for the magic force field attack, but I guess not. Besides being easy, he's actually kind of fun, as the gimmick of using the Zora's abilities to defeat him felt pretty satisfying in a way that the other bosses didn't. Now, the last dungeon is not the worst. I like it more than the Woodfall and Snowhead Temple, but I still think the Great Bay might be my favorite. Maybe, because I do like this temple's gimmick. It starts out playing like any other Zelda temple, making use of all Link's equipment and items. And there are areas for the Zora mask and the Deku mask to really strut their abilities. And this dungeon does make use of one of my favorite Zelda tools, the Mirror Shield. I love the Mirror Shield because I love the puzzle of having to like bounce light off your shield in order to hit a target that unlocks like a door or something. Plus, I really like the boss battle in Wind Waker from the Earth Temple, where you had to stun the giant Poe with light and then like pick him up and throw him into spikes like he was Bowser from Mario 64. But yeah, this temple had some pretty good moments where you actually had to use the Mirror Shield. Although I will say it does kind of become pointless to use once you get the light arrows found in this dungeon. Once you get the light arrows, you really have no need for the Mirror Shield. After obtaining the light arrows, you actually have to leave the dungeon in order to shoot this gem that will then flip the entire world upside down. Then when you enter the dungeon, it's all upside down. And that was cool. The game literally allows you to go through this temple in a new perspective, which was really cool. Although make sure you get everything you need before flipping the temple, because if you didn't, you have to leave the temple in order to flip it again, which was kind of annoying. I kind of wish there was a way to actually flip the temple around while inside the temple so you don't have to constantly exit. Speaking of annoying, the boss for this one was yet again time consuming. You'll eventually get the Giant's Mask, which looks like a xenomorph or an ancient alien skull. The mask will allow you to grow into a giant, which was actually kind of cool at first, because I thought this boss battle was setting up to be like a kaiju fight or something, and it kind of was, but not as cool. You see, you can't use any items while wearing this mask. You can only use your sword and shield. And you have to run around and hit the flying centipede bosses on a certain part of their bodies. And your magic is constantly being drained. And you have to collect these green refills from these structures once they get destroyed. But for some reason, I couldn't pick up the magic bottles while large, so I had to shrink down only for the bottles to disappear. Basically, I had to wait around as normal Link until a centipede broke a pillar and then make a mad dash for the magic bottles before they disappeared. Oh yeah, and given you're running around a desert while normal size, your movements are slow, because Nintendo thought it would have been a fun idea to make you run on fucking sand.
I don't like...
Don't Don't even. I think what really irks me about this game are the fact that the bosses take literally forever to beat. But not just the main bosses, even the mini bosses, or at least whatever these guys were. Yeah, this fight with the skeletons started out pretty cool, but overstayed its welcome pretty fast because, yeah, fuck these guys. I kind of wonder if this game really expected you to kind of upgrade your equipment, because you actually can. It's just, well, like everything else, doing so, of course, is tedious. If you head towards the mountains, there's a blacksmith shop. Entering, you'll see the furnace is covered in ice. You have a few options on how to deal with this, like if you defeat the boss in the Snowhead Temple, all the snow will melt along with the ice. Or if you have some fire arrows, you can just shoot it. Now, you can upgrade your sword, for some rupees of course. The thing is though, it takes a whole day to upgrade, and the upgrade only lasts about 100 hits. That wouldn't bother me so much if I could at least keep the upgrade even when I travel back in time, because you lose most of your items and rupees when traveling back to the first day, and that unfortunately includes the sword upgrade. Luckily though, your bow and grappling hook and of course the mask you collect stay with you. It's only consumable items that disappear, and apparently along with this sword upgrade. Now, there is a permanent upgrade for the sword, but guess what, paisanos? In order to get it, you have to win this fucking Goron race. Yeah, no. My favorite part about the upgrade is that the game does allow you to get what's called a fairy sword, but you can only get that by collecting all 25 fairy sprites in the last dungeon of the game. So basically the game gives you one of the most powerful swords in the game towards the end of the game. This sword, while cool and pretty powerful, is kinda useless because these dungeons are pretty linear, meaning I can't just go straight to the Stone Tower Temple. I have to beat all the 3 other dungeons before that. And given I refuse to partake in any Goron activities, I basically just had to make use of this shitty sword and deal with the tedious nature of each bosses. So once Link has defeated all the bosses and collected all the masks and learned the Oath of the Orders, he makes his way finally to the clock tower on the final night. For some odd reason, I really like the small cutscene that plays when the clock tower opens. Something about it is ironically calming. I don't know, I guess it's like the calm before the storm kind of thing. I don't know. This part is pretty easy though. Link confronts the Skull Kid and plays the Oath of the Orders, summoning the giants to pretty much stop the moon from crashing down. The mask then ejects itself off of Skull Kid and escapes to the moon. This then causes the moon to become almost unbearable for the giants, meaning the only way to stop Majora itself is to go after it. And being the hero he is, Link goes after it to put a final end to this Majora. The moon sequence is one of the coolest visuals you could interpretate the moon being. It's basically just an open field with a lone tree in the middle. You can't see anything further past the tree, and it's almost like running around a dream world. It looks peaceful, but there is a darkness to it, naturally. Going up to the tree, you'll see 4 kids running around, with one kid sitting by himself, curled up, wearing the Majora's mask. Now, before interacting with that child, given I had collected all the masks, I have to give each of the masks to these 4 children running around. Once I start giving out the masks, I then have to play a game of hide and seek with them. Now, these games are basically just an obstacle course that tests your abilities with the 3 forms plus Link himself. And yes, fuck the Goron segment. God, I hate this shit. Anyway, once completed, the kids disappear and all that is left is the child in the middle, Majora itself. He notes that you're out of mask and says he'll give you a mask if you play good guys and bad guys with him. He, of course, being the good guy. He then gives Link the bad guy's mask, the Fierce Deity mask. Again, one of my all-time favorite masks in this game. Now here it is, the final fight between Link and Majora. Not the Skull Kid, Majora. Now, Majora itself is evil. The Skull Kid had some redeemable qualities to him. Yes, the Skull Kid was a bit of a nuisance even before he got the Majora's Mask. And he was, of course, in the wrongs to have robbed the Happy Mask salesman. but he wasn't evil. More like a misbehaved child seeking attention. Angry and lonely, yes, but not evil. And basically Majora used him. Majora fed off the anger and loneliness and turned the Skull Kid into its puppet, using him to pollute the world with his evil magic. Yeah, there really is no redemption to Majora. There's no bullshit sympathetic villain trope, no misunderstanding. Basically, Majora is a manifestation of pure evil. And I love that about Majora as a villain, because that means our hero Link has to basically eradicate it from this realm. And the final fight becomes a good old-fashioned good versus evil type of fight. Although I do love how the Fierce Deity Mask is noted to have a bit of evil powers to it, just like the Majora's Mask. So in a weird way, it's kind of like using fire to fight fire. And with that motivation, we face off against Majora. With the help of the Fierce Deity Mask, we put a stop to Majora and... okay, wow, okay, he's already sending out his goons. Well, that was kind of fast. Oh, he already morphed into a new form. Jesus, he's terrifying. I mean, look at his design. He's all frantic and comical, but pretty menacing. You know, he kind of reminds me of a certain someone. Okay, now he's growing. I thought that would have taken a few more hits, but okay. Holy shit, he's even more terrifying. God. What is wrong with his face? Why does he have a mouth? Okay, I'm assuming this is his final form, but it has to also be his strongest form, right? Oh, look, I got hit. Okay, I should probably take it easy and, wow, he, huh. You know, for something that's supposed to be pure evil, it sure as hell is pretty pathetic. Maybe it shouldn't have given me the Fierce Deity Mask? Huh. Yeah, the final fight between Link and Majora was just easy. Well, apparently it's only easy if you fight him with the Fierce Deity Mask, because that mask spanks him like his daddy should've. You know, according to the Zelda wiki, it states that most fans of Majora's Mask actually frown upon using the Fierce Deity Mask when fighting Majora, because the final fight is actually supposed to be quite challenging. But my response to that is, yeah, get fucked. Because do you know how much of a grind it was to get all those fucking masks? You know what I had to go through just to get through the fucking Goron segment in this game? I don't give a fuck if it's frowned upon. Listen, if given a nuke, I'm gonna use the nuke. Fuck your made up rules. Still though, I kinda wish there was some kind of challenge or at least a satisfying gameplay gimmick with Majora. I mean, the other bosses took forever to put down. I would have thought that they would have given you some kind of fight with Majora, regardless if you had the Fierce Deity Mask on or not. I guess the logic was that given that you had to go through a very tedious adventure to get all the masks, the developers probably wanted to reward the player with something to make the final fight go a little bit smoother. And the game comes to an end with Majora finally being defeated and the moon blasting off into another dimension, or for some reason turning into a rainbow. The people of Termina are finally saved, and the Guardians leave. And the Skull Kid realizes his friends never really meant to abandon him. They were always there for him. They just had, you know, other godly responsibilities. The Skull Kid then also realizes that his jealousy and his behavior towards the people of Termina was basically all his fault, not the Guardians, his. His story does have the whole sympathetic villain trope, but it does it pretty well, without trying to justify Skull Kid's actions. We know he did bad things, but him realizing his ways, him shaking with guilt and sorrow, shows us that there's still a redeemable quality to his character, and that shows that he's now on the path towards redemption and even forgiveness. And in the end, the mask salesman gets his mask back with the evil rid from it. He then parts ways, but also warns Link that the rift between Termina and Hyrule is set to close soon. So Link should probably get going. And then he literally vanishes. Yeah, I kind of wish the game really elaborated on his story a bit more, because the game leaves you with so many questions like, who are the Moon Children? Why do they look like him? What's his connection to Majora? Where did the mask come from? You know, why does he have my social security number? You know, so many questions. Link then says his final goodbyes and rides away towards home in hopes to return to find his long-lost companion. And during the game's credits, we see the people of Termina are finally happy. All the Skull Kids' curses are lifted. Anju gets her wedding, the fish lady gets her singing voice back, and I'm assuming she got her babies back, hopefully? Basically, everyone has a happy ending in this game. Even the Skull Kid, who realizes he still has friends and will never truly be alone. He even ended his quest making a new friend. Overall, Majora's Mask is an outstanding game with great characters, side quests, and one of the most unique clock mechanics I have ever experienced in any game. It's a game we really don't get anymore, unfortunately. A game that successfully shook up the usual formula we would see in a long-time franchise like Zelda. But it was also a game that was quite tedious. Getting all the masks was interesting, but did drag at times. I mean, the ones that were good were usually attached to a well-written quest and made good use of the time loop mechanics. But constantly having to collect masks and constantly having to repeat days and even activities just to get some masks were kind of a chore. And yeah, the boss battles could have been maybe not necessarily easier, but could have had a more unique gameplay mechanic to them rather than just hitting them until they finally died. Upgrading could have also been a little bit more fun, or at least had some convenience to them. But overall, the game really hooks you with its story, world, and it solidifies itself as one of the greatest Zelda games ever. At least one of them. I still fucking love Wind Waker. Hey, look at that. You made it towards the end of the video. Thank you as always for sticking around towards the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was fun and interesting. Apologies in advance if my microphone is cutting in and out, or if I sound weird or different from the main video. I'm sort of experimenting with different audio equipment right now, and trying to really understand how to do better audio. It is a bit of a challenge. Anyway, let's talk about why Link looks like he just called Mike Tyson a sissy. I guess one of my worries about this illustration piece was that it might give people a wrong idea. You know, given Link's age, it's like, why does he look like that? He's like, what, 10 years old, and you're drawing him looking like he just got into a fight with freaking, I don't know, Bruce Lee or some shit. It's like, well, hold on now. The point of this illustration piece is not to endorse or to encourage violence or anything crazy like that. I was a little worried it might come off a bit off-putting. Even while I was illustrating it, I was like, is this gonna read wrong? You know, like stuff like that. In fact, the original sketch had blood just gushing down his head. So as I was coloring it, I was like, I don't know if I want to put blood coming down his head. Let's just give him a black eye and a little scrapes here and there. How about that? That should look better, right? So yeah, the reason why Link looks like this is because I wanted to show Link facing off against a great threat, which is what Majora was. Majora was a great threat. He wasn't like a goofy villain. I mean, yeah, he did like goofy dancing and whatnot, but he wasn't a goofy villain like Pilaf. He was a great threat to the people of Termina, and that's what I wanted to represent. I wanted to show how powerful he is and how much of a struggle he is to face again. Even though, of course, I whooped his ass easily, but in terms of like what kind of story I'm trying to tell with this illustration piece, I'm trying to show how threatening Majora is, and unfortunately our hero Link looks like he has been struggling. You know, I always think of Link as a hero first, regardless of his age, and the thing about that is I like it when like comics or movies show the reality of being a hero. You know, it's not easy, I would say. You know, there's a lot of struggling physically and emotionally. It's a challenge. It's stressful. I've always liked, if you look at shows like Daredevil, right? Netflix's Daredevil, or reading a Daredevil comic, Daredevil always kind of looks like shit at the end of each battle. He's always kind of getting his ass handed to him. He's always bleeding. He's always scraped up. And I've always liked seeing that because there's something poetic, something very human about seeing your favorite heroes kind of look beat up. It gives us something to root for because we're seeing our heroes get like the shit kick out of them. And we're like, no, Matt, get back up, or Link, get back up. And they do. That's the important part, is that they get back up. And so, when I was illustrating this, I wanted to, Link is standing up straight. He looks like shit, but he's still standing. And that is the important part of it, is that he's willing to get back up, even though the challenge is great. That's kind of what makes a hero. A hero would stand up regardless of how they look or how they feel. They just stand back up. And so that's what I was trying to capture with this image. Link standing up, because, he is the last line of defense between the end of the world and Majora. If Link were to fall, then it's the end of the world. Not just for Termina, it could be for anyone else. So that was one part of reason why Link looks beat up. Another reason why Link looks beat up is, do you guys know who Alex Ross is? Of course you know who Alex Ross is. Who doesn't know who Alex Ross is? Alex Ross is one of my favorite comic book artists. I would even argue he's just a great artist in general, regardless of comics. He's a good artist. He's good at bringing, comic book heroes to life. He has a very realistic Andrew Loomis art style, and he's good at making heroes, even though they're wearing goofy outfits, he's good at making them look believable. Like that could be a real person. I don't mean to throw around the word iconic, because iconic is such an overused word. Everyone calls everything iconic these days. Even if it's been done, they're like, it's iconic. It's like, no, it's not. It's been done, asshole. Anyway, so one of his art pieces, though, is pretty iconic. It's the art piece where Batman has like scars all over his back. He's taking off his shirt, he's looking back, and he's just got scars all over his back. And that's iconic because that perfectly represents Batman's plight. It represents being Batman, I guess, it's what you can say. Because, Batman, he's human. He doesn't have superpowers. He's got armor, sure. He's got bat gadgets and shit, but he's human. He's gonna get his ass whooped. So this Alex Ross piece is Batman. And it was one of my inspirations because, when you think about like scars and scrapes and whatnot, each of those scars and scrapes has a story. And that's kind of what Majora's Mask was about, all these stories about people around Termina. And so Link having wounds, Link being beat up, he's not just representing himself. He's not just representing sort of his struggle. Each of these scars on Link's face, each of these wounds, they kind of represent a story of the people of Termina. One scar could be from when he was helping Crimea. Another scar can be when he was helping Anju and Cafe. Another scar can be from when he was trying to obtain the four masks to release the giants. Each of these scars have a story. Link, in a weird way, is kind of harboring the pain of the people from Termina, and it represents it on his body. And that's kind of why Link also looks beat up. It's this like symbolism of other people's struggles, the symbolism of other people's pain. And given that Link is the last line of defense, he's standing up against evil, he's going to be using all he can to defeat Majora. So that's also why he's holding the Fierce Deity mask and why we see Mark Buffalo in the background just like hulking out. Link is using his final resort. He's using pretty much his Hail Mary. That's another inspiration for this piece, is to sort of represent a Hail Mary. Link is struggling. Link has to protect Termina. He's got to protect the fate of the world. He's going to use all he can to destroy Majora. And that includes the Fierce Deity mask, which, as we've seen, the Fierce Deity mask is said to have evil just as bad as Majora residing inside of it, which I fucking love. Again, back to Daredevil, I'm a huge fan of this idea of like
in order to destroy evil, sometimes you have to let the devil out. And I kind of like that. If you think about like Daredevil, like he's a Catholic, you know, he's a good person, you know, he's, you know, follows a strict sort of by the books church kind of thing, but he dresses like a devil. And the idea, at least from the Netflix show, if I can remember, it's kind of like this idea of like, sometimes you just gotta let the devil out. You know, sometimes you gotta use the devil to defeat evil. And that's kind of the same with this. So yeah, that's kind of why we have, you know, Fierce Deity, Link merging, and this is Link's last resort. You know what's interesting about the shield was, at first, I did not enjoy the shield design initially. You know, I always thought it was weird looking, because it's like a scared face. I mean, it adds to the theme of what Majora Mask is going for, but I just never liked that shield look. I've always liked the Wind Waker shield, or I think the Ocarina of Time shield with the red rim. Those two designs are more, I guess, approachable. This design is just creepy as fuck. But I actually found myself enjoying the design as I was illustrating it. That's the fun thing about illustration, is at first something might look like shit, or something might look just like, ugh, I don't like doing that. But then you start actually doing it. You start actually seeing the value in the design, and you're like, oh, okay, I kind of dig it. I'm trying to think anything else I can say before I wrap this up. No, that's about it. I guess that's all I have to say about this piece. Yeah, this is the Majora's Mask art piece. Hope you like it. Hope it was fun to look at. Hope it adds to the intensity, the drama of Majora's Mask. So yeah, hopefully this video was fun to watch. Hopefully this art piece inspires you to go out there and create your own art. Yeah, that's the goal of these art rambles. That's the goal of these art, is for you to go out and create some art, man. Don't get boggled by AI, or I don't know, whatever people get boggled by these days. Create some art, man. Create some art. Go out there, make some art. Anyway, good night, or good morning, or goodbye, or I don't know where you're at. So this is a video that was, I'm just gonna end the video. Oh god, here we go. I'm leaving. I don't know how to end things anymore. I just